So now we are moving to our next speaker, Kathleen Barrett. So Kathleen works for Sun Country Airlines, and they've had quite the journey this last 18 months, where resilience was a critical attribute to them surviving. They actually did it better than other airlines, I dare say. Probably get me in trouble, but I think they did. I've been following them. And their approach allowed them to be at the forefront as the market recovered. And we've been seeing big things for them this last year. And today, you're going to get to hear all about what they did to become resilient and how the supply chain can help fuel their future. And this message is brought to you by Kathleen Barrett, a top 40 under 40 dynamic low-cost airline leader, and someone who's worked for over 5 US airlines. So she knows her stuff. Over to you, Katie.
Can you hear me okay? I'm assuming yes. Well, Fiona, thank you for the incredible introduction. I really appreciate it. And of course, you know, Joanna and the rest of the fellow leading ladies and supporters, I'm thrilled to be part of today's experience. Really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great listening to everybody and all of you amazing women today and how you're each paving the way for a better tomorrow for us all. So as Fiona has mentioned, I'd like to speak about my airline, current airline, and what has set us up for success in surviving a global pandemic during one of the toughest environments in aviation history. So a little bit more in background of myself. As Fiona mentioned, I'm an aviation veteran of over 15 years and have worked for actually six airlines throughout my career. These airlines have ranged from charter, regional, legacy, and low-cost carriers. Of course, many like to joke and say I'm trying to play airline blackout bingo, but I assure you that's not the case. I just really, truly enjoy assisting in the restructuring and transition of airlines into a different business model. In fact, I more or less stumbled into aviation by accident. I was always fascinated by airplanes. My dad used to take us to the MSP airport, I'm a native Minnesotan, and pre 9/11, of course, and would get us McDonald's and we'd sit and watch airplanes take off via the runways all day long. And I was fascinated, but I knew nothing about the industry. So right out of college, I ended up stumbling into a financial analyst position at Champion Airlines, which of course is no longer in existence. And truly, I've just been hooked ever since. So I now currently serve as Sun Country's Vice President of Fleet, Fuel, and Airport Planning, where I oversee, of course, fleet, fuel, power plant, all of our airport agreements, and all of our facilities, and have been with the company now for 3 years. I joined the aviation industry in a pretty difficult time back in 2006. And throughout my career, I've experienced a wide range of both airline angst and joy, including company shutdown, bankruptcy, merger, consolidation, the miracle of the Hudson back when I was at US Airways in Phoenix, a pilot strike, failed IPO attempts, and 2 successful IPO events, and of course, COVID-19. This industry is definitely not for the faint of heart, and especially for us women in a still very primarily male-dominated industry. I've overseen a multitude of finance, operational, facility roles, including the build out of 2 airline headquarters, procurement, and fleet roles. And of course, during one of the greatest challenges of my career was navigating my airline through the pandemic. So a little bit of history on Sun Country before I get in the meat of it is we've actually been in existence for quite some time, but a lot of people don't know about us. We commenced operations in 1983 with a single 727-200. I always like it because 1983 is a really good year, the year I was born, and was founded by pilots, flight attendants, and mechanics. The airline has always been MSP based, and being a native Minnesotan, I grew up thinking there were actually only two airlines, Sun Country and Northwest. So after my tour around the company, trying out different airlines, when I had the opportunity to return home to my home state and become an executive of my hometown airline, I couldn't pass up the opportunity. So what makes us different from other carriers that I've worked for is we are a brand new breed of the low cost carrier model. We actually have three distinct business lines. Passenger leisure, which is 60% plus of our business. Charter, we fly around the DoD, sports teams, and a lot of casino charters. And what really helped us through the pandemic was a fairly new contract with Amazon Cargo, which is an additional 20% of our business. We're a high growth airline, low cost, with a unique and resilient business model, and currently have a fleet that consists of 34 737NG passenger aircraft and 12 737-800 cargo aircraft that are owned by Amazon. We carry about 4 million, depending on pandemic loads, of course, scheduled passengers annually, and serve approximately 60 scheduled and 400 charter destinations. So, we're really good at operating in and out of airports. And of course, leading to our excitement, we actually were able to pull off an IPO in March of this year. So we actually were able to survive the pandemic. We're so successful through it and how we managed the process that we were actually able to pull off an IPO. Needless to say, flexibility is really the name of our game. So what makes us special is we're able to provide peak demand opportunities for our passengers and passenger offerings. And this really was a recipe that helped us through the pandemic. I can brag about my airline all day long, but if I were able to sum up our product in a couple of points, I would summarize it as mentioned just previously, serving customers at time that they want to fly. Some of my previous employers used to call it maximum sunshine. So fly during peak times to make sure our customers can experience their destination as long as possible. So we're highly seasonal, obviously based in Minneapolis in the wintertime, which, we had a couple of years ago, negative 55-degree weather. We actually have pins. I don't have my on, but we didn't actually cancel one flight during that cold spell, which is amazing in itself. So we fly, obviously, customers during the winter down to southern regions where it's warm, and then we kind of flip the model in our summer months and fall. So secondly, we offer a quality product that is above and beyond many of our low-cost competitors. We have a greater average seat pitch that averages about 31 inches. All of our seats recline. We have in-flight entertainment, in-seat power, and complimentary beverages. So, Minnesota customer base expects a lot, and we deliver. Third, as mentioned before, we have a leading charter business, and we're able to enjoy long-term relationships with charter customers that are large, stable, and non-cyclical. And that really was a key factor of helping us survive the pandemic. And lastly, of course, the long-term cargo contract that we have with Amazon and strong partnership we have with them provides us with a source of significant and stable cash flow. And, obviously we weren't able to predict COVID, but when we were able to sign that contract at the beginning of 2020, that really helped push us out to the forefront. So all these factors provided us with the recipe to survive this global pandemic. But of course, as mentioned, no airline could have predicted it, but our diverse model proved that having our balanced portfolio prevails during incredibly difficult times. Our strong leadership, our structure provide us with the tools to fight through these difficult times. Our differentiated model, focuses on low CASM, so cost per average seat mile, which most of you know. This, of course, results in higher margins for us and carry us through the challenging environment.
Hey,
In fact,
Kathleen,
yes,
may I interrupt?
of course.
I just want to keep us all on track. And I'm sure what some of our listeners are wondering is what can they be doing to be a supplier and be supportive to Sun Country Airlines?
Yes, and I will definitely be getting to that, but I think part of it is important to understand exactly what our model is and how it's helped us survive, and then mention then what they can do to help participate in that success.
Awesome.
Okay. So anyways, part of it is, and when you talk about how can suppliers help support us, is supporting our CASM, our low costs. We had gone from, since 2017, to the lowest operating margin airline to the best during 2020. And, of course, then another factor that led us to our success was that we were able to leverage a very strong balance sheet. And we were actually the only carrier to leverage during the COVID crisis. But really, our success story is not complete without a story of our employees. I could talk all day long about a resilient model and whatnot, but really it was our people who contributed to our success. There's one industry that's superior at overcoming challenges, it's aviation. I'm really proud to work along my fellow colleagues who, we all put on brave faces, showed up every day, rolled up our sleeves, and tackled the immense challenges of operating an airline and all of our airports safely during the pandemic. So what's next? The good news is we're rebounding, and TSA throughput is continuing to increase. We have a wider distribution of vaccines. And due to these factors, Sun Country has been executing on, 2021 and beyond growth plans. So we were actually one of only 2 airlines in the US to have positive first half 2021 adjusted operating margins. As mentioned, we're adding new routes and destinations, and we're accelerating our fleet growth. And again, this is where, suppliers can really help us along with our plans. So we have 34 aircraft right now in our fleet on the passenger side, 12 additional cargo aircraft that are owned by Amazon. And we have plans to grow our fleet to 50 aircraft, 62, including the Amazon fleet, by year end of 2023. So pretty aggressive growth plan that's going to need support. And of course, it's keeping my teams very, very busy since I'm in charge of airports and fleet. So we're really focusing on restructuring our fleet with a focus on ownership, and we have no planned lease redeliveries prior to 2024. So this allows us to focus on growth with very low capital commitments. On a hunt for silver linings throughout a pandemic, COVID actually has opened up opportunities for us to acquire aircraft at very low cost. So our focus is on acquiring mid-life aircraft at cheaper rates. And we currently don't have any book orders to acquire aircraft at this point, as we're able to find them on the used market as demand requires them. So really, what can suppliers do to assist with our success? Long story short, just support us. A business model like ours requires a tremendous amount of flexibility. For us, we don't tend to enter into exclusive or monopolistic agreements. We really need flexibility on PMA versus OEM parts that benefit our model. And of course, I know this sounds silly, but yes, competitive pricing. For being a smaller US airline, we are fierce negotiators, and we don't just accept, just because we're small, poor pricing. So really, if there's one message I could send to suppliers, is don't dismiss smaller carriers. We're not as large as a legacy airline, but we are aggressively growing and have obviously proven to be successful. We pay attention how we are treated by suppliers and do give our loyalty to those who treat us well and perform well for us. And then, of course, creativity. Any ideas of how you can assist with our cost control or greater efficiencies? We're all ears. This industry is constantly evolving. Policies and procedures are updating, and we want creative partners who are willing to work with us. So at the end of the day, this industry is very dynamic. It's constantly changing, and we're looking, for partners who can keep up with us so we can mutually benefit from the business. So in summary, Sun Country is well positioned for success moving forward, and we're looking forward to our suppliers and partners to join us in our successes.
Thanks, Katie. And if you could share your details with our audience about how they could reach out to you, that would be fantastic.